everyone. We are getting ready for the 2025 legislative session. And here in Washington State, we are so lucky to have a transparent legislature. And this session, we're even more lucky because the Washington State legislature has redone their website. So let's jump in and see what things you can find out there. When you get on the Washington State legislature website, which is leg.wa.gov, pretty easy to remember, you can find out a bunch of things just from the home page. The first thing that you can do is look for specific bills. If you happen to know the bill number, you just type it in right there and then hit search and you pull up that bill. But we'll talk about different ways to search for bills in future videos. Some other things that you can find just from the homepage are different laws and rules, legislators, and committees. But let's scroll down and see some other things that are going to be of use to you. There is a calendar, a daily calendar on what's happening in session. This is really important and useful for you if you want to go testify, see a committee in action, or you just want to know what your legislators are doing on a day-to-day basis. We're filming this on December 17th, so you can see that today on December 17th, there is a joint Oregon-Washington Legislative Action Committee happening at 3 p.m. We'd be able to see the agenda for that committee as well as the video on TVW. So if you want to know what Oregon and Washington are doing, you can go visit that. Additionally, on the website, on the main page, you can find out how laws are made, that 9-step process of how a bill becomes a law. If you scroll down a little bit further, you can find out how the Washington legislature is actually structured, from the House of Representatives to the Senate, to the committees that are embedded within those bodies, to the legislative agencies that are actually supporting how the legislature works. If you scroll down further, we find out about all of the civic education programs that the legislature works with, including how you could become a legislative page. Pretty exciting. And then the last thing you're going to find out on this main homepage is how to visit our beautiful Capitol here in Olympia, how to make a reservation so that you can come down here and get a tour of this beautiful building. And while you're down here, you can come visit TVW as well. So we look forward to seeing you there.
Edna Brazil was a remarkable woman. She was raised on a stump farm right near Bayview and on Padilla Bay. She taught at Roosevelt High School her whole career. And one of the years she was there, maybe two, she had this.
I'm going to go. You get to lead up there. So we go straight down to the streets more. So Richard, and you rolling things kind of start with going. You're not going to read the rulings.
Which would all look out over the bay. They sold hundreds and hundreds of lots. She really wanted to preserve it. She wanted to figure out some way to save that farm. And so she called Dan Evans, who is now the governor of the state of Washington. And they worked together and made sure that the farm was preserved, and the state started to buy up those pieces and parcels. And so the state of Washington now owns most of the bay.
So if we have any issues, I have that thing here. So we should get out of practice session.
Yeah, it's fine to get this practice. Yeah, where is it? Let me find it. Oh, where they're signing. There we go. There we go. we almost were trapped in a practice session, and the screen to start the practice was hiding underneath the other window. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start with introductions. I'm Morgan Damerow, Chief Transparency Counsel for the Attorney General's Office, and today's hearing officer for the Public Records Act Model Rules. Also present with me this afternoon are numerous folks from the Attorney General's Office. Seated to my immediate left is Alejandro Cortez Cruz, who will be helping with the Zoom parts of the presentation, promoting folks and helping folks testify. And also is Angie Adams, who will be helping, keeping us online and keeping us on track with the timer and just coordinating those kinds of things. Other folks are here from the AG's office to help. We're going to transfer out a couple of people as we go along, but those are the immediate folks who you'll participating as we get going here. So far, except for the difficulties with starting the webinar, the technology has been cooperating. I obviously hope this continues. If and when that doesn't happen, please be patient with us, and we'll regroup and we'll fix what's going on and continue on. So for the record, today is June 30th, 2026. We are in meeting rooms A, B, C of the Cherbourg building. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we are here today to conduct a public hearing and take public testimony on the proposed amendments to the PRA model rules, which are in Chapter 44-14 of the Washington Administrative Code. The Attorney General's Office filed the CR 102, which is a notice of proposed rulemaking. This was published in the Washington State Register, WSR 26-11-042. Copies of the proposed rules are here in the room and are also available on the AGO's rulemaking webpage. For the model rules, we are accepting both oral and written comment. If you are present with us today and have written comment, please make sure that you leave it with us and don't inadvertently take it home. For people participating remotely, you can email a copy of any written comments to AGO rulemaking, and that's all smashed together, at atg.wa.gov. Please do so before 5 o'clock today. We have received a lot of written comments in advance of today's hearings. Thank you, everyone who took the time to share their thoughts with us. We will be posting all of this material on our rules-making webpage. I also want to thank everyone for participating in this hearing on the PRA model rules, both the folks who are present with us this afternoon and the folks that are participating via Zoom. Just to avoid a little bit of confusion that occurred with our first hearing on the PRA model rules, there was a question about the authority for the rules. This is a rules hearing being conducted under the procedures in Chapter 3405 RCW, the APA as commonly known. This is not an Open Public Meetings Act governed procedure under 4230. Here's what you can expect today. As I mentioned, we received written comment on the proposed model rules. We'll be posting those to our website. Today we have, it appears, 5 people who have appeared to provide live testimony, and we have approximately 17 people who have signed up to provide comments via Zoom. If anybody who has signed up via Zoom did so with the intent of just observing today's hearing and doesn't intend to provide public testimony, would you please let us know in the chat so we can watch for that as we work through the folks who have signed up to testify. There's also the ability just to watch the hearing. We made a public link available, and we have numerous people participating that way as well. In providing public comments today, we have allotted 5 minutes for each individual. I ask that you focus your comments on the model rules and information related to the PRA, and refrain please from making comments about other individuals who are here to share their thoughts and views on the PRA model rules and on the PRA. In looking at the number of people who have joined us today, my plan is to alternate between in-person and remote testimony. Based upon the number of participants, my plan is to start with folks that are present with us in the audience. Probably have three individuals share their thoughts. We'll shift to 3 folks remotely, and then come back to live testimony for any other additional live comments that are going to be provided, and then finish off with everybody else who has indicated they want to provide testimony via Zoom. One of the screens will have a 5-minute timer on it. I ask that you keep your eye on this as we work through testimony and help us wrap things up on time. During the first hearing on the model rules, everybody did an excellent job kind of watching this, and I don't think we had any issues, and hopefully that will continue today. If perchance you can't see the timer, please let us know, and we're happy to let you know when there's a minute remaining, 30 seconds, and when your time has expired. We have a court reporter here with us today that is taking down everything that is being said. As a person who tends to speak rather quickly, I ask you please don't mimic me or mirror me. Please be kind to our court reporter. Please speak clearly and not too quickly. In the event that you switch into auctioneer mode or start talking as fast as I can, our court reporter will ask you to slow down and repeat what you said. So please do your best to be kind to our court reporter and their ability to track what is being said. Because there is a court reporter, there will be a transcript of today's hearing. We will post that on our rules making page as well when we have it. Today's hearing is solely for the purpose of taking public hearing, taking comments on the proposed model rules. We are here to listen. This is not a question and answer period. We did a lot of work and had a lot of conversations with stakeholders prior to filing this original CR 102. A few people have reached out to me to talk about the proposed model rules, and I apologize for not calling you back, but I felt it was not appropriate for the hearings officer to have separate conversations about the rules outside of this public process. To the extent I apologize, I probably should have reached out to explain that to folks a little better, so I apologize to the extent somebody felt ghosted by me. So in terms of the actual mechanics of how testimony will work today, when we call folks to testify, for folks in the live audience, we have a podium with a microphone so that everybody should be able to hear both people that are present here today and people that are participating via Zoom. For those folks who are testifying via Zoom, Alejandro will promote you to a panelist, which will allow you to turn on your microphone and your camera. As we've learned from these technologies over the last few years, occasionally that eats a lot of bandwidth. If you see that your connection is getting slow or unstable, sometimes turning off your camera helps normalize that connection, so we'll at least be able to hear you. So going forward, we're about ready to start hearing from folks. The plan is, like I said, we'll hear from three people that are present with us today. We're going to start off with Richard Potter, then Roland Thompson, and then Candace Bach, and then we'll switch to Zoom testimony. And I'll do the same thing as we switch over. I'll announce the first three people for Zoom testimony, and then we'll come back to live audience. So with that, Richard, I'll turn the mic and the floor over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Richard Potter. In this proceeding, my colleague John Gray and I are representing the Administrative Law section of the Washington State Bar Association. The section has a long-time special interest in the Public Records Act and its proper implementation. It's just about 20 years ago now that the section first published the Public Records Act Desk Book, which was created in partnership with the Attorney General's office. The section is currently working on another update, and over the years the section's presented numerous seminars on the Public Records Act. So in those roles, the section is very much interested in the issues with regard to promptness and diligence in responding to public records that were raised by the media's rulemaking petition in this case. But the section is actively participating in this proceeding because it's a chance to pursue some objectives the section's had for a long time with regard to the model rules for implementing the PRA's requirement that state agencies have indexing systems for 4 types of records. And in our opinion, the issues with implementing those indexing requirements are really quite straightforward and easily accomplished compared perhaps to the more complex issues with regard to how agencies respond to public records requests. So the PRA's requirement is found in RCW 4256070, subsection 5. The model rule is WAC 4414030, subsection 2. And the comment to that rule with regard to the indexes is 44.14.03003. The section submitted comprehensive comments in October last year responding to proposed rules that had been published at that time. Our comments explained the PRA's requirement that state agencies establish by rule a system of indexing those 4 types of documents, and the requirement that such rules must contain at a minimum specific components that are described in that statute. Our comments explain the significant benefits to the public and to the state agencies themselves that can be realized by state agencies complying with the law and using best practices to do so. Our comments also explained in detail the improvements needed in the model rule and the comment, and we set forth the texts of a revised model rule and comment that would make those improvements. The revised model rules published by the Attorney General's office last month are unchanged on these issues. There are a couple of changes on the table for the model indexes rule. There are still no proposed changes to the comment. Yesterday we emailed in brief supplemental comments. In short, the model rule comment continues to give state agencies the incorrect advice of, quote, using their records retention schedules as their index, close quote. This must be corrected. If you only did one thing that we are asking in this proceeding, that would be it. State agencies have been following this incorrect advice, which results in them not creating and providing the records indexes required by the PRA. The statute requires indexes that direct users to specific documents. Records retention schedules do not list specific documents, they just list types of documents. Next, the draft revised model rule does make one improvement, but it still does not cover all of the index rule components required by the PRA. Next, the draft model rule takes a Spartan fill-in-the-blanks approach. That approach can work, but only if the related comment provides sufficient information and advice on how to fill in those blanks in a way that meets the minimum requirements of the PRA, and also provides best practices advice for structuring the index system and its rules, and for actually providing indexes that benefit the agencies and the public. The unchanged comment does none of this. The revised rule and comments texts proposed in our October comments make all those needed improvements. So, when we read the concise explanatory statement that the APA requires to be published by the Attorney General's office in this proceeding, we will hope to see that upon consideration. The office has not rejected our proposals, but has adopted them. Thank you.
So we're rolling. One of the people online indicated we were having an echo. Okay. So I'm going to mute this. There's a speaker in the microphone in the evening. In the ceiling. Okay. And I'm going to see if they can hear you okay without this. And if they need to, if they can't. Do you want to do a test?
Like that'd do even better. I don't know that you can turn. You can't turn that off at the microphone.
You can't. So
you're going to get an echo.
Probably. Okay. Yeah. Just unplug it. Yeah. If you wouldn't mind rolling, that'd be great.
Is this okay?
Yeah, this is
whoever's online. Are there any thumbs up? Any?
Can folks online hear Roland okay?
Am I all right? Audio is great.
Yeah,
no problem.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Roland. Appreciate your patience.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Roland Thompson. I'm here representing the LA Daily Newspapers of Washington and the Washington State Association of Broadcasters. I'm also, at this time, the acting chair of the Sunshine Committee, and I want to make it clear that I'm not here in that capacity, since there might be some confusion. But in 2024, Allied Daily Newspapers and the Washington State Association of Broadcasters joined other media organizations in a rulemaking petition to improve the model PRA rules. The petition was born out of our frustration as reporters and editors about a falling off on the part of governmental entities in responding to our requests for records. We were seeing long delays in records that we had requested for timely reporting on governmental actions, and that frustration led us to come forward with this asking for this change, and we're very happy that the Attorney General has stepped up to address those issues for us. We want to laud the APA section of the bar for the changes that they put forward just now, and that's made me cut some parts out of my testimony as well. But overall, we think that the proposed rules would improve the compliance with the Act and should be adopted as soon as possible. Especially important and very much appreciated are these 5 revisions. We want to make sure that there's prompt disclosure, that there's diligent processing, and that times estimates based on specific requests are not just part of a general backlog of requests that the agency already faces. There is also the question, we want to prevent storage of public records solely on private devices, and we want to avoid pointless lawsuits which have come forward of late from third-party notice when the statutes do not require that, when there are large requests that go out with multiple third parties that are named in those requests, and they receive third-party notice without any statutory requirements. And with that, I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Candace?
Thank you. I'm Candace Bach with the Association of Washington Cities. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. We've also submitted written comments again, and they have some similarity to our written comments that we submitted previously. I want to mention that Washington has 281 cities and towns. 57% of those are population 5,000 or less, which means that in those cities you have just a handful of staff and probably a city clerk that is doing triple duty. Doesn't capture it. They are serving as a public records officer and many other roles. And so it is important to us that these model rules help provide greater clarity to them and certainty for jurisdictions of all sizes, but really keeping in mind some of the very small communities and the impact on them when there are questions and concerns about public records. With that, I just want to highlight a couple of our main comments. Just reflecting on the proposed requirement to transfer records from a personal device to a public device or account within 5 days. We certainly appreciate the desire to provide greater clarity there and a goal of 5 days, but we don't think it actually adds anything to the underlying law to move it as soon as possible, essentially. It just creates perhaps more questions about what are the unusual circumstances in which 5 days would not be the right number of days. We definitely agree that those records should be transferred as soon as possible, and are not sure that putting 5 days in there adds anything to the underlying model rules. I want to also highlight some of the concerns that we raised last time about the changes to 44-140-040, 1 and 3, requiring or encouraging classifying requests as either simple or complex. This again sounds straightforward, but it puts public records officers in the position of determining what's simple, what's complex. Similarly with time sensitive, it puts them in the position of determining what's time sensitive and what's non-urgent. And we feel like this could really have requesters pitted against one another for the limited time and resources that are available, and put a records officer in the position of trying to arbitrate over those questions, just really creating more liability. It's possible to imagine a scenario where a public records officer continuously prioritizes what's perceived as simple requests, never finding time to get to the complex requests. So again, appreciate the intent and idea behind that. We just don't know that it'll work as envisioned in practice. Many of our comments are, again, similar to previously. I do, again, want to thank the Attorney General's office, the staff present. We appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and do agree that it's a good time to update. We haven't done an update in a while, and really appreciate the opportunity to provide comment for the public records officers, the city clerks out there to provide comment. I think you'll be hearing from some of them. I know they've submitted written comment, and encourage you to listen to those practitioners on what it's like for them in the day-to-day business of trying to, as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible, respond to the many and varied public records requests that they receive. With that, I'll just encourage you to refer to my written comments. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to shift to folks online for the next 3 public comments, starting with Joe Kunzler, then Tammy Sunderland, and then Natasha Langer. Okay.
Hello. Can everyone hear me?
Yep, we hear you just fine, and we can. You're small on the screen, but we can see you as well.
All right, thank you. I didn't mean to be that small, but Joe Kunzler here. You can start my time. I want to thank you for your time and attention to this matter on public records rules as I work on my comments, and I'm definitely going to respond to some of the commenters today, both in support and in opposition. I think it's important that we review the model rules every 10 years or so. I also think it's important we have model rules for public meetings. I know it's probably not surprising because we all need to know the rules of the road, and the state legislature cannot legislate everything. That's why we have model rules. I want to start with that, considering I reviewed some of the YouTube of the last hearing and some of the good comments there. I would also add, respectfully, with 4 minutes left to go, that I really appreciate the focus on promptness and triaging. I think that when members of the media come forward and say, hey, I'm on a deadline and I need these records by such and such, that needs to be prioritized when it's clearly a credible news outlet, not someone's blog, not someone's beehive per se, but a credible news outlet has been recognized. And the reason why I stress that is I worked for an aviation news publication for 3 years and 3 months. I obviously considered using public records, and I decided in all my wisdom to not request public records because I knew I would not get them in time for the timelines my editor set. And it's kind of hard to go back to a story long after. So we need to improve the speed of public records production. I would also note, as I will in my comments with the written comments of the exact numbers, that according to JLARC's incomplete data, that the cost of producing the public records is far higher than the returned, cost recovery in fees for document production. I think it may be best to waive the fees for all but the most complex of public records. I also think the model rules should recommend, but not require, that all agencies track their costs and turn it into JLARC so we can have a more complete picture. It's important we understand whether this is truly burdensome or not. It's important we understand how efficient and proficient public records officers are based on data and not just oral testimony. That can be veered towards the extremes. It's also important that we remember that we require public records because we want the public to have sovereignty over the government, and without public records, it's hard to do that. Going back to my journalist role, again, I personally prefer having public records in hand because then I can speak to the facts. For instance, it would have been nice to request public records about airport improvements and such. At least I got good PR handouts, but you kind of see where I'm going. I would also add, and yes, I intend to use my full 5 minutes. Shocker. That I really want to just, in the last 30 seconds, hammer home how important it is that we have efficient, friendly public records production. We have many great public records officers in this state, and I could make a long list, but we don't have time. That's not my issue. My issue is we need to make clear that we need to not be having public records on private devices. I think 5 days is way too long. It should be 3 days. Why? Because, quite frankly, it's disrespectful to the people who pay the bills. And with 55 seconds left to go, I would also add that we live in a time of declining trust in government. We live in a time when the news media is under attack. We've got, and I got to be careful how I say this because this is before the PDC at my prompt, but we've got people who are playing journalists and appear to be lobbyists under review here, trying to supplant those of us who honestly got to do this work of going through public records and putting out what's out there. That it's really important to prioritize supporting journalism in these public records requests and also letting the public be informed. Decisions are made by those who show up, and that's how I choose to live my life. And I'm grateful for the Washington Coalition for Open Government giving me a key award for that. And with that, my time has run out. I want to thank you for your public service as always. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tammy and Natasha, we don't see that you've joined us online. If you are there, we didn't see your name. Would you please chat us in the chat function? And with that, we'll move back to live testimony, starting with Colette Weeks, and then Arthur West, and then Cassidy Mueller.
Good afternoon. I'm Colette Weeks. I'm Executive Director of the Washington Coalition for Open Government, also known as WashCog. And I do want to thank the Attorney General's Office for moving forward to improve the model rules. We do support that effort. The Coalition, for any who don't know, is a nonpartisan nonprofit that advocates for the people's right to know what government is doing in their name. We're a mostly volunteer-run organization that works through the legislature, courts, and civic education efforts to defend and strengthen the state's public information and access laws. The Coalition preferred the earlier draft of the improvements, and we do support the changes now advocated by the news media petitioners, with one exception. We do not believe agency personnel who conduct public business on private electronic devices should have more than 2 days to transfer those records into publicly maintained systems. 5 days is too much. We believe that promptness has been a dominant theme for the Public Records Act from the beginning and should remain. We want to see that word remain prominent in the rules. Other issues we support: triage of requests to ensure simple ones are not pushed far behind the more complex. I know it could be a little complicated to do that, but I'm sure that the smart people of Washington government can figure it out. Third-party notification. We do not believe parties should be notified prior to release of a record. The laws say which are exempt, and if there's confusion, the question should go to an agency's legal counsel or perhaps the Attorney General's office to find out if there is an exemption in question before going to the third party, because what happens is a delay that interferes with the people's right to know. We care that records remain organized and accessible, and that the culture of government be focused on serving the public, which includes their right to know, because they do deserve to, they have the right to know what their public servants are doing. I'm not gonna take my 5 minutes today, because I didn't think I'd have but 2. But others from WashCog are online and will speak today on some of these topics. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Arthur West. I'm a citizen who employs the Public Records Act. I like the model rules, most of them. They seem to be a step forward. I think the focus on promptness and triage is good. I oppose any tiering or analysis of who the person is. I think that the ordinary peasant should be in the same position as the fourth estate or anyone else when you make a records request. So I would oppose any type of favoritism, as one of the previous commenters talked about. As far as use of personal devices to conduct public business, I think that there ought to be rules that is inappropriate. Many cities have adopted such rules. I think the model rule should state that this is not appropriate, and agencies should take reasonable steps to make sure that doesn't happen. If it does, 5 days is long enough, I think. I'm very happy that these rules, in many respects, are a step forward. In regard to the production and installments, we're sort of in a situation of one step forward and 2 steps back. As anyone knows now, one of the significant loopholes, of the 2 significant loopholes, is agencies can take forever to produce records in installments. It's not uncommon to have 20, 30 installments. And the new rules eliminate the 30-day period for abandonment of a request. They reference any agreed date, and some agencies have flaunted the local rules. I think the Department of Health, Department of Revenue have employed a 10-day period. I don't think that that's appropriate. I think citizens should have a reasonable amount of time. 30 days is a pretty established period, so I resist the removal of the 30-day abandonment requirement. I think that that's totally inappropriate, especially in an area where there can be literally scores of productions. So it's very difficult to keep up with an agency that's going to make 30 or 40 installments. So that, I think, is the main thing that I have against it. The other loophole is the destruction of records. If an agency destroys records prior to a request, they get away scot-free. And these rules, I don't think, go far enough to the institutional pattern of destruction of records. The Teams fiasco, where the agencies were using Microsoft Teams and records were routinely being destroyed, and I'm not sure exactly if that process is going on still, but I think we need to have some very strict rules to prevent destruction of records, because that's a significant loophole. I don't think the rules go far enough as far as that is concerned, especially as to the institutional patterns of destruction, evidenced by the use by WATEC of the Microsoft Teams auto-destruct feature. So I'd like to see that clarified. Other than that, I'm very happy with the rules. They seem to be a good step forward. And again, aside from the elimination of the 30-day period to claim or pay for records, I think they're good. I think there also needs to be a provision if a state agency requires payment for records, that they accept electronic payments, because it's very burdensome meeting these like 10-day period response periods and having to go to your bank and issue a paper check and send that in and get that received within 10 days. Very difficult to do. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good seeing you again.
Good afternoon. My name is Cassidy Miller, Deputy City Clerk for the City of Issaquah. I come before you today representing I come before you today representing the Washington Municipal Clerks Association, which submitted a letter to you via email yesterday. I am also representing the board of the King County Municipal Clerks Association, which supports the WMCA letter. Firstly, thank you for your work over the past several years to update the Public Records Act model rules, and for considering feedback throughout the process from the agencies and public records officers who process requests. WMCA supports the goals of transparency, accountability, and meaningful public access to government records. Municipal, municipal clerks play a central role in helping public agencies meet their obligations under the Public Records Act. Every day, clerks work to balance a variety of duties and obligations related to records management, transparency and public disclosure of records and information, legal compliance, and many other operational responsibilities. Our comments focus on 3 areas which we believe the proposed Public Records Act Model Rules amendments could benefit from additional clarification or revision. The first is that records management should be guided by records professionals. WMCA supports the goals of maintaining public records in an organized and accessible manner. However, we are concerned that portions of the proposed amendments move beyond public disclosure practices and into prescribing specific records management requirements. Records retention, preservation, and records management standards are already regulated through RCW Chapter 4014 and the Washington State Archives. Sorry, I want to keep this on time, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. So WMCA believes that the model rules should focus on public disclosure principles while continuing to defer to RCW 4014 and the Washington State Archives guidance regarding records management best practices. This approach would promote consistency and avoid creating overlapping or potentially conflicting expectations for public agencies. Point 2 was that public records must remain available and accessible. WMCA strongly supports the principle that public records should be available and accessible to the public. Municipal clerks are committed to providing prompt access to records and helping requesters obtain the information that they seek. Many agencies have invested substantial resources in modern record systems, websites, electronic document repositories, and online portals that make records readily available for inspection. These efforts advance the spirit and purpose of the Washington Public Records Act. But at the same time, agencies must maintain flexibility in how they organize records and allocate resources. Public records responsibilities do not exist in isolation. Clerks and records staff are often simultaneously supporting public meetings of elected and appointed officials, public notices, contracts, licensing activities, and countless other public services. The current model rules recognize that agencies are best positioned to determine how to process requests efficiently while balancing available resources and operational needs. Number 3 is that full assistance requires flexibility. WMCA strongly supports the Public Records Act requirement that agencies provide full assistance to requesters. In fact, providing assistance is at the heart of what municipal clerks do every day. We regularly help residents identify records, clarify requests, locate information, and navigate agency processes. Our concern is not with the goal of fullest assistance, but with the possibility that the proposed amendments may unintentionally limit an agency's ability to determine how to best provide that assistance. The current model rules already require agencies to process requests in a manner that allows the greatest number of requests to be completed as efficiently as possible. This principle recognizes that agencies vary significantly in staffing, workload, and available resources. Requiring agencies to follow a prescribed triage process could unintentionally reduce their ability to provide timely and equitable service to all requesters. WMCA believes that full assistance would remain a practical and flexible standard. Agencies should be measured by whether they are helping requesters obtain records promptly and fairly, not by whether they follow a specific workflow or categorization system. Providing flexibility allows agencies to adapt to local circumstances while remaining focused on the ultimate goal, helping the public to access records. WMCA remains committed to transparency, public access, and responsible stewardship of public records, and we appreciate the opportunity to provide these comments. Thank you.
Thank you. So next is going to be going back to Zoom, and I think that completes the folks that are testifying in person today. Will be Martin Turney, Raju Dahlstrom, and I apologize if I didn't get your name exactly right, and Dr. Mary Templeton. We'll start with Martin Turney.
Good afternoon. My name is Martin Turney. I serve as the Chief of Finance and Operations for the Issaquah School District. I'm speaking today on behalf of the School Alliance. Public agencies strongly support the public's right to access records. We share the goal of transparent, accessible, and effective public records process. However, we're concerned that several of the proposed amendments may unintentionally reduce efficiency, create additional administrative burdens, and expose agencies to increased legal risk. As we understand it, the rulemaking petition stems in part from concerns about slow responses to public requests. To that end, rather than add more administrative processes, we suggest that the model rules address one of the root causes of delays. By strengthening the language in the model rules governing the automated or bot requests, it would benefit both people who make the requests and public agencies. The current rules focus on multiple requests submitted within a 24-hour period. That framework no longer reflects the reality agencies face today. Automated systems can generate coordinated, duplicative, or computer-generated requests spread across multiple days, identities, or slightly different wording. We recommend updating the model rules to allow agencies to aggregate and manage related requests that exhibit signs of automated or high-volume activity. Agencies should also be permitted to use reasonable technical safeguards, such as CAPTCHAs or rate-limiting tools, to verify that requests are being submitted by actual individuals. Second, we are concerned about the proposal to make a requester's name optional. The Public Records Act directs agencies to provide requested records to any person, but agencies are increasingly receiving requests submitted under names that appear to be fictitious or computer generated. Agencies need a practical mechanism to confirm that a request originates from a person and to communicate effectively with that requester when clarification is needed. We recommend the AG not move forward with the revised proposed rules that makes the requester's name optional. Third, we anticipate operational problems with implementing the proposed prioritization and triage requirements as drafted. The proposed rules would encourage agencies to assess whether a request is urgent and in some circumstances prioritize it over other pending requests. This creates substantial operational challenges. Public records officers would be required to make subjective judgments about the relative importance of requests, potentially exposing agencies to legal challenges when requesters disagree with those decisions. If all requesters claim that time is of the essence, or if one requester submits multiple priority requests, agencies will be placed in the difficult position of deciding whose requests receive priority. Agencies will then need to document every triage and priority decision and engage in additional communications with requesters to reduce legal risks. If the AG proceeds with prioritization framework, we urge you to adopt a safe harbor provision. Agencies and public records officers acting in good faith should not face liability for reasonable prioritization decisions made under competing demands and faced with limited resources. To the extent an agency prioritized an urgent request over another request, the requester who is deprioritized should not be able to sue for daily penalties during the period that they were deprioritized while the agency fulfilled urgent requests. In addition, the revised proposed rules require that agencies will work with a requester to identify priorities if time is of the essence, but the records production is not possible within their time frame. We recommend modifying the proposed language to replace will with should. This provides needed flexibility while still encouraging collaboration. Agencies should make reasonable efforts to work with requesters, but circumstances may not always permit extensive back and forth communications and full compliance with the proposed schedule. Finally, we are concerned about replacing the standard of the current model rules. The current rule allows agencies to require public records requests to be submitted only to designated persons. A clear and designated intake process helps to ensure that requests are quickly routed to trained public records staff. Allowing requests through numerous informal channels increases the risk that requests will be missed or delayed. This does not serve the interests of the requester or of the agencies. We request that the AG retain the current model rules language that allows agencies to adopt procedures directing requests to designated persons. In closing, we appreciate the Attorney General's commitment to improving the public records process. We welcome continued collaboration on these issues. If the proposed revisions move forward, we encourage the AG's office to convene stakeholders and develop operational guidance for agencies, particularly the areas I have highlighted in these comments. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Is it after Roger? Yeah. And then I believe next is Raju Dahlstrom. Yep. apparently they weren't able to join us today, so Dr. Mary Templeton.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. My name is Dr. Mary Templeton.
Ms. Templeton?
Yes. Take it down a notch.
Yes.
The court reporter needs to take down what you say, so please
Got it.
slow down and please start again.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to be here. My name is Dr. Mary Templeton, and I'm the superintendent of the Lake Stevens School District. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to weigh in on the proposed rules. First of all, I want to thank you. Anytime we have accountability components that partner with public education, we think that's a great thing. It gives confidence to our taxpayers in the product that we produce, and that's the 1 million children in our state and their success, which is, as we all know, that's the paramount duty. We support the state auditor's office when they audit us. It's good for all of us. So I just wanted to let you know that we support public records completely. As it relates to the rules currently, I thought it would be important to share with you the complexities that will occur for us with the rules as proposed. There will be a lot of additional time and training and responsibility. Other folks have mentioned some of the challenges associated with the public records, the new rules as submitted. As I think about the prime function of public education, and I can speak for my entity, it's to educate the children, to make sure that every kid can understand math fluency and literacy. That's our main hustle. And in order to accomplish that mission, we're very eager to have our resources focused on that. And anytime we have things that are pulling from that, we feel compelled to acknowledge that this is a pull. And so the public records at the proposed rules will be a pull for us as it relates to resources. And just in my district, we have about 10,000 students. So we're not the biggest school district in the state, but we're not the smallest. We're about mid-size. We spent almost 700 hours of our time last year responding appropriately to public records. And we've always done that, and we will continue to do that. But with these additional requirements, I'm anticipating perhaps up to 1,000 hours of our time. And although we will do that, I know that this is not the venue to request a funding mechanism. There's no fiscal note here, but I'll ask anyway. As we move into the additional requirements for public records, we will do our duty because it's the right thing to do. It's the legal thing to do, but we'll ask for some sort of funding relief for that so it doesn't become yet another unfunded mandate for public education. I would like to just close with what we would like to spend our 1,000 hours on if we can get some support to make sure we fulfill our duty with public records. I think about math, and we haven't accomplished what we need to accomplish, and I'll say that publicly as a superintendent. We have work to do, and I acknowledge that. And with 1,000 hours, I could run a math camp for my elementary students. And I could get more students there with a golden ticket in their hand when they cross that stage and they move in to our system. And in Washington State, public education is the economic driver. We're the social justice driver. We are the ones that are producing healthy families, healthy communities. When we're successful, we're all successful. So I just wanted to bring to your attention that we, of course, are in compliance and support of public records and transparency, how every tax dollar is used, but there is an impact, and so I just wanted you to be aware. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Catherine George, and then Robert McClure, and then Lunell Hott.
Are you ready for me?
We are. Good to see you again.
Hi, thanks. I'm Kathy George, a public records attorney. Over the last 2 years, on behalf of the Seattle Times and its partners in the rulemaking petition, I worked with the Attorney General's office on efforts to improve the model rules. And I am grateful for Nick Brown's leadership in conforming the model rules to the Public Records Act, including these 4 key mandates: prompt disclosure, diligence, avoiding disorganization, such as when employees keep public records solely on private devices, and reasonable time estimates that are based on the difficulty of the request. It bears emphasis that when Washington voters resoundingly approved the records law in 1972, they demanded, in these words, prompt disclosure and the most timely possible action on request. And that language still governs state and local agencies today, yet many have lost sight of it, as we learned from some of the comments in this rulemaking process. Adopting the changes to Model Rules O&O and O20 will help fulfill the law's promise of timely public oversight and combat the pervasive disclosure delays which inspired the media petition 2 years ago. And of course, as we've heard today, there is tension around limited resources and privacy concerns, and the current proposal is mostly acceptable, though not perfect, in addressing the agency reactions. Of most concern, however, is the addition to the proposal of subjective terms such as available, limited review, reasonable, and regarding third-party notice may affect the rights of others. And that latter phrase is vague and loose, unlike the very strict legal test for a third-party injunction, which has consistently been upheld by the Washington Supreme Court, including last year, and which has encouraged numerous failed lawsuits that waste the resources of all involved. So I encourage you to please revert to your earlier proposal to conform the third-party notice language to the law. And in closing, thank you, and please do move forward on improving the model rules.
Thank you. Next is Robert McClure. Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you for your help. Thank you for hearing me today. Thank you. I am Robert McClure. I am a volunteer and board member at the Washington Coalition for Open Government. Thank you so much for updating and improving these model rules. We really appreciate Attorney General Brown's attention to this long overdue update. We really want prompt disclosure, and that's what these are all about. And that's what the voters said they wanted. And that's what the voters still want. And we can cite many modern examples of how this electorate here today really supports the Public Records Act and prompt disclosure. We agree with the news media that the current proposal is good, but not as good as the originally proposed rules, and agree with their critiques of some key terms such as available, reasonable, may affect the rights of others. We strongly support the model rules, reminding agencies that the voters specified that these records should be released promptly, and calling on records officers to triage requests so that simple requests can be fulfilled more quickly than complex ones. We strongly disagree with the currently proposed language that allows record officers to contact third parties in case of release of information that, this is the quote, may affect rights of others and may be exempt from disclosure. That's also vague and loose. We endorse the news media petitioner's suggested language, which directs disclosure without notification of third parties if the information is not exempt from disclosure. If it's not exempt, you don't have to notify. In cases, if the record officer is not sure, then we also support the language directing records officers to contact requesters to offer them an opportunity to revise the request to avoid third-party notification. The reason we're unhappy about this is these third-party notifications cause dramatic delays. And remember that although the statute permits notification of third parties, it does not permit delays for third-party notification. We also agree with the news media that the title of 1440 040 subparagraph 6 should not speak of a, quote, right for third parties to oppose release of information. There is no such right. In several instances, the AGO's office has replaced practicable with reasonable in terms of releasing information. Please go back to practicable. Reasonable is extremely subjective. I'll echo what's been said about use of personal devices by employees and officials. It's frowned on. It should be frowned on, and it is officially frowned on, and yet it goes on. It's rampant, and we've seen lots of examples of where these official government communications have been lost, deleted, whatever, because they were on some person's personal device who was not reelected or something like that. I want to echo what's been said about you must let requesters communicate and pay electronically versus snail mail. I could go into a lot more on that, but come on, this is the land of Microsoft and Amazon. I mean, why are we sending checks through the mail? I can understand the clerks that have worries that have been expressed here today, but I think that can be worked out. Time and training will no doubt be necessary, as Dr. Templeton said, but there's also an ongoing need identified by WashCog's 2024 report, which you'll hear about a little bit later, dissecting the problems in administering the PRA. I also support Dr. Templeton's position that more resources are needed to make sure we fulfill our basic obligation to keep the public informed. So I serve as chair of WashCog's government committee. I'm a volunteer. So what I'm about to say, what I've said before represents what WashCog, that position. What I'm about to say represents my personal opinion. I would be glad to have a conversation about the difficulties Mr. Turney described and regarding multiple high-volume requests from non-human requesters. However, it is important for real people to be able to request records anonymously, and I can cite a number of recent examples of why this is important, and starting with the last 6 weeks with the whole blow-up down at the Timberland Public Library, where a parent employee had to request PRA through the PRA records that might have brought retribution on them. I believe the moniker they used was Squirrel Nut Zipper or something like that. But the point is that real people should be able to use the PRA and not have to fear retribution. Okay, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you. And next is Lunel Hott, and then after that will be Michael Francher, Cheryl Portier, and then Diana Kramer. Ooh. And we still have Robert. There we go. Linnell, it looks like your microphone is on.
It is. I'm ready. Can you hear me?
There you are. It just took a minute for the technology to catch up with us. We can see.
Well, you know, I like being faster than technology. I'm in Spokane, which is a distance. And just so that you know, I work for local government, so I do have some background in this. Thank you for tackling the public records issue. Making the public's business available to the public without interfering with other services, departments, and agencies provide is a challenge in balancing priorities. This is about administrative procedures, and my concerns really are about how the PRA is operationalized. Access to physical documents, not much of an issue as it was in the pre-electronic document age, but a different issue arises related to the public records officers specified in RCW 4256-580. Their job is to oversee the agency's compliance with the public records disclosure requirements of the chapter. And I'm suggesting a mechanism to ensure compliance should be considered in this effort. Additionally, your rules in RCW 4256-152 state that they shall provide for the fullest assistance to inquirers and the most timely possible action on requests for information. So it's easy for training to lapse and maintenance to be deferred. Both of those things increase the time and effort required to comply with these RCWs. So as you work through this, please prioritize public access, which relies on record maintenance and organization. And you've had some good comments from those professionals already. The agencies do have different missions, what they do, as our superintendent reminds us, but how they do that with transparency supports public trust in government, which is essential. Seriously consider not using private devices. I bet it doubles the compliance time because so many of us forget, oh yeah, I have to transfer that information to Harriet. Private devices, the use of them creates a liability, and YMCA, the public records officials, probably have some guidance on that. The real question is, are we getting the results that we want? And that's what's important. The result that we want is for the public to be informed, trust their government, and for the agencies to not feel stressed about the kind of work that they have to do that may feel like an additional responsibility, but really it is the way that they do their public work. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And next is Michael Fancher, and then after that will be Cheryl Portier, who may not be with us, and then after that is Diana Kramer.
Thank you. I'm Michael Fancher, president of the Washington Coalition for Open Government. In 2024, the coalition produced a special report on the erosion of public access to government information in Washington State. We called it Your Right to Know. The report identified recurring problems regarding the administration of the PRA. One of the main problems is that agencies fail to provide fullest assistance to requesters because administration isn't regarded as an essential government service, complete with adequate funding and staffing. And I say that with sincere sympathy for Dr. Templeton's expressed need for greater support from the state. WashCog especially appreciates the parts of the proposed model rules that seek to improve 2 points made in our report. One, that agencies fail to properly maintain, organize, and disclose records, and two, that officials use personal technology to evade public records laws. We support the expectation of the most timely action possible to fulfill requests. And I'd also like to add a personal perspective on why these model rules and the public's right to know matter so much, and why we preferred the AGO's original proposal to the current proposal. I retired from the Seattle Times in 2008 after 30 years there, including 20 years as executive editor. The following year, I helped write a report for the Knight Commission on the information needs of communities in a democracy, a joint effort of the Knight Foundation and the Aspen Institute. The Knight Commission made these declarations. Information is as vital to the healthy functioning of communities as clean air, safe streets, good schools, and public health. A community is a healthy democratic community when government is open and transparent. An informed community would regard the health of its information environment as being as central to community success as the quality of its water system or its electrical grid. And finally, it would protect that health by persistent and simultaneous focus on issues of information availability, citizen capacity, and public engagement. I think those conclusions are relevant to both the spirit and the specifics of the PRA model rules. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. And Diana Kramer, and after that will be Michelle Matassa, Sally Deenan, and then Marisa Huntley. Dan, it looks like there's some technical issue with your ability to promote. Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Am I here now? Shall I start over?
Yes, please start. We heard nothing up until that moment, so please start again.
I'm Diana Kramer. I'm a private citizen living in King County, Washington, and I'm just here to thank the Attorney General's office for your leadership in reviewing the model rules and to doing what you can to help restore the original intent of the act, which is to construe access broadly. I think that promptness is really important. I think that people should not be using their private devices to store electronic records because it's going to be either intentional or inadvertent that those things are not, that information is not transferred in a timely way to a public receptacle so that the citizens can maintain oversight over the government and the things that we have created and we pay for. I think we are seeing a lot of frustration and loss of trust, primarily at the federal level, when information is harder to get. Not even the legislative branch can get access to information. And I would hate to see anything that happens in this state that replicates that in any way. There are no shortage of things that the government requires of me as a citizen, and it requires that I satisfy those requests on certain deadlines, and if I fail to do so, I can incur penalties or fines. And yet, it seems like some of the discussion here has to do with relieving some burdens on the government to satisfy requests promptly. So whatever we do moving forward, there should be more emphasis on public access, and I support the speakers who have been pushing for that. I thank you for your time today, and again, thank you for the important work that you're doing.
Thank you for joining us. Next will be Michelle Matassa Flores, and then Sally Deenan.
Hi there, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time today and for all the work you've put into this important update of the PRA's model rules. I'm Michelle Matassa Flores. I'm the executive editor of the Seattle Times, and I also speak today as a representative of the media petitioners who proposed this update. The latest proposal makes good progress toward clarifying and strengthening the rules, and we appreciate Attorney General Brown's support of the act and of transparency in government in general. We launched this process because of a disturbing pattern of public records requests being inappropriately denied or delayed, often due to agencies misunderstanding their legal obligations or misinterpreting guidelines that were vague in some places. We do understand the need for compromise and for the Attorney General to consider feedback from public agencies, which often we recognize are working with small staffs and under difficult circumstances, as they've described here today. We believe this current set of revisions does improve the existing rules, but it also falls short on a few key points. We've submitted comments that detail those points, and I'd like to highlight just a few things here. In some sections addressing how agencies should provide the, quote, fullest assistance, the latest revision adds some subjective qualifiers that weaken the rules. And you've heard from others about this today, but specifically I'll call out the rule now says an agency must aim for the 5-day turnaround if a record is deemed, quote, available. But what does that word mean? It's never defined here. The same section also says quick action is necessary only if a record requires limited review or exempt content. Limited also is not defined. And this draft would also allow agencies to decide what time frame is reasonable for quick action. These vague words do not align with the text of the law itself, and we encourage you to remedy that. Finally, and very importantly, I'd like to address the section on third-party notification. We believe the current revision, while an improvement over the existing model rule, will still encourage fruitless lawsuits that waste the resources of everyone involved. The rule should parallel the language of the statute itself, which imposes a strict test for injunctions. For example, it says the seeker of an injunction must prove that disclosure, quote, would clearly not be in the public interest and would, quote, substantially and irreparably damage any person or vital government function. We strongly urge you to revisit this language and tighten this section to comport with the law. This is not an esoteric or an academic matter for news organizations. We're dealing with a tide of third-party lawsuits seeking to block release of records for no good reason. These cases are almost always without merit and prove unsuccessful, but only after months and sometimes years of delays and legal bills that threaten grave danger to news organizations already facing existential financial crises. At the Seattle Times, we had to spend about $60,000 in one case to defend against a meritless third-party injunction lawsuit by Eastside Catholic School football players who were accused of raping a fellow student. This case was clearly in the public interest. We were investigating prosecutorial decisions in this case, and we weren't seeking to name the players. We won at the lower court and on appeal, and still, the suit against us, filed on behalf of John Doe's after a third-party notice issued by prosecutors, lasted more than 2 years until the state Supreme Court denied a petition for review in March of 2022. Disclosure of those records was held up the entire time the case wound through the courts. That delay was not in the public interest, and the expense, only one example of multiple such cases we've faced at the Times, cut into our ability to staff our newsroom and inform the public. For a smaller news organization, those expenses can mean the difference between staying in business or closing for good. We urge you to maintain the high bar for third-party challenges as provided for in the statute and in your prior rule proposal. And we appreciate you moving forward with these proposed model rule updates. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next will be Sally Deenan, then Marisa Huntley, and then Otto Pointer.
Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, great. Hi, I'm Sally Deneen. I'm a concerned citizen. I live in Seattle. I'm here today to ask you to make these model rules as friendly as possible to maximum release of government records to the public. These rules restate what the voters did when they originally passed the law that the release of records requested by the public should be prompt. It's my understanding that between the release of the Attorney General's first set of proposals and the ones under consideration today, changes were made that seem likely to make it more difficult for the public to access government information. Please change that to maximize release of information by the government. Thank you for your consideration. That's it.
Next is Marisa Huntley, and then Otto Pointer.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Jen, and we can see you as well.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Attorney General's rulemaking team. My name is Marisa Huntley, and I work for Sammamish Plateau Water and Sewer District, a special purpose district located in King County. Thank you for your work in updating the model rules and for the opportunity to comment on the proposed amendments to the model rules. I support the efforts to improve guidance for transparency and access to public records. However, some of the proposed amendments would create unnecessary administrative and financial burdens, introduce legal ambiguity, and may not be scalable across agencies of different sizes. I did submit written comments that more specifically identify which provisions. In short, my overall comment is that the PRA model rules should preserve flexibility so agencies of all sizes can fulfill public records requests in the most efficient manner, while reflecting each agency's operational needs and available resources. The Public Records Act is implemented across a wide range of local governments with very different staffing levels, workloads, and technical capacity. The model rules should support that diversity by avoiding rigid or subjective requirements and instead allow agencies to apply practical, resource-based approaches that ensure timely and equitable responses. Maintaining this flexibility will help agencies comply with the Act consistently, reduce unnecessary administrative burden, and better support both transparency and effective public service. Thank you for considering these comments, as well as the written comment I submitted prior to this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Otto Pointer.
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Great.
Okay, great. Well, I'd like to turn my camera on. I'd like to say hello to everybody. Let me see if I can figure that out. Well, anyway, I don't want to waste valuable time. Morgan, thank you for the opportunity to comment today. I'm speaking because the Public Records Act is not abstract to me. I had to rely on, whoops, here we go. Okay, I'm back again. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and we'll see if we can activate your camera for you, and then we'll reset the timer. There we go.
Okay, good. I'm here. Morgan, it's great to meet you. We've had a lot of chats over the past 3 years. I'm speaking because the Public Records Act is not abstract to me. I had to rely on the PRA request to uncover records, communications, omissions, and misconduct concerns that are now before state authorities. I am under a court protection order, and I'm enrolled in an address confidentiality program because of a death threat connected to my PRA activity and a SEPA appeal. I am also a witness in a state-level investigations involving senior law enforcement officials and alleged interference by a state senator, issues that came to light through public records requests. I also had to use personal funds to file a PRA complaint against the city for withholding vital records during that appeal. I mention this only because it shows why the model rules must work for ordinary citizens and volunteers like myself before litigation, not after. My comments are directed specifically to the proposed changes to WAC 4414-010, 020, 030, and 040, prompt access, fullest assistance, record organization, triage, reasonable estimates, installments, exemption explanations, and later discovered records and closure notices.
Wait, stop.
You're getting too fast for the court reporter.
Reasonable estimates, installations, start from there.
Okay. Okay, I'm talking about installments, exemption explanations, later discovered records, and closure notices. Blaine is a real-world case study showing why the CR 102 model changes need to be explicit enough to prevent constructive denial by delay, vague estimates, missing and withholding explanations, incomplete installments, and premature closure. In Blaine, citizens used PRA to request records needed to evaluate major land use decisions and environmental decisions affecting public health and water quality issues. These were not curiosity requests. They were commercial requests. These were records needed to deliver a live SEPA appeal, which I headed with community members from Birch, Fay, and Blaine, where deadlines were running and citizens had to prepare motions, evidence, and testimony. What we experienced was slow production by the city, stalling where the city could appear to comply but was functionally denying access. the city could claim the response was complete with additional responsive records that were still pending. It could say no exemption logs were needed because no records were being withheld, while emails and other records remained under review. It could provide partial box.com productions, omit material environmental records from public-facing project files, and then place a burden on citizens to figure this out. We had over 60 records that were withheld from us in different record requests. And then the city came back and told us it was going to take 2 years. This is not meaningful transparency. This is constructive denial. For a citizen in a SEEP appeal, records produced 2 years later are not timely. They may technically be produced, but they are useless for the public decision that affects the livelihoods of over 15,000 people in the communities that we were representing. That is why I support the strengthening of the model rules, but I believe they need to be more explicit. First, when production is incomplete, the agency should identify what remains pending. A requester should not guess whether the agency is still searching, still reviewing, withholding records, or simply closing the file. Number two, when records are withheld, redacted, excluded, or claimed privilege like we experienced, the agency should provide a withholding log or equivalent explanation. It is not enough to say nothing is being withheld while responsive records are still under review. Citizens cannot challenge an exemption that is never identified. Third, when an agency gives a long estimate, especially 30, 60, 90 days, or in our case 2 years, when the agency should provide the factual basis, a vague multi-year estimate is not good enough. It damaged us during this appeal process. Fourth, agencies should use rolling estimates and prioritize time-sensitive records needed for hearings, environmental review, and urgent public health questions that we face, including criminal investigations of police officers. Fifth, a request should not be closed until known responsive records remain unproduced, unlogged, or under review. The Blaine story matters because transparency can fail in the state with an outright denial. It can fail through silence, delay, vague estimates, missing logs, premature disclosure, and the list goes on and on. The PRA process should not depend on whether a citizen can afford to sue. The rules should prevent lawsuit in the first place. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, and good to meet you in this virtual context. I know we've spoken a number of times over the last couple of years, so good to have a face with a name finally.
We sure have. We sure have. Good to meet you, Morgan.
So is there anybody else who's signed up, who's online as an attendee who had intended to testify today and who hasn't been given the opportunity? I see one person's hand raised. Okay, we have two people, okay. So we will, the first person who promoted that one, yeah, we'll promote you, and you've signed in as anonymous, so it's, take a second for the machine to catch up, but in a second you should be able to turn your microphone and camera on. And then the second person was Tina Irwin, and you'll be next.
Hi there, can you hear me?
You can.
Okay. Public records requests are not paperwork. They are protection. I know that personally. I am an anonymous complainant with the Criminal Justice Training Commission after a court-verified death threat was made against me and other victims. Without PRA requests, I would never have known that Senator Sharon Shoemake exposed my name, my husband's name, even though he was not a complainant, and the names of other victims. Her letter was received by the CJTC on May 18th. The investigation was closed on May 19th. It has since been reopened. That timeline should alarm every citizen. She did not just expose us. She put our lives at risk. She used her office to disparage victims of a death threat.
Excuse me, I appreciate if this is context, and I'd ask you to focus comments on the model rules and on the PRA and your thoughts on whether there should be amendments to that or your position on the model rules.
I'm here to let you know the importance of PRAs. My life was on the line, and I depended on those PRAs. She exposed my anonymous name. How does the public hold a senator accountable if the public is not allowed to see what the senator did? This is why they are called public records. They belong to the public. They are one of the last lines of defense against corruption, retaliation, and abuse of power. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Tina Irwin, you should be able to turn on your camera and your microphone. I think as the public hearing has gone longer and longer, it takes longer and longer for the Zoom to catch up with us. There we go. I see your microphone is active. We can't hear you, Tina. Can you try to say something? We want to try demoting you and then bringing you back into the, we're going to put you back as an attendee and then we'll bring you back as a panelist again, Tina, and see if the second time around we do better. That doesn't work. We'll just go louder talk. Okay, Tina says your microphone is working. Okay, we'll try it a different way. Just find it louder talk. Okay, thank you, Tina. If you please feel free to submit written comment today as well. Apparently, technology did not work out and whatnot. And it looks like one other individual wishes to provide public comment. Jay Tabor. I don't see his microphone. It's weird. There we go. Now we can hear you.
Hello?
Yep, you have 5 minutes, Mr. Tabor. Go ahead.
Okay. My name's Jay Tabor, and I'm an open government activist in Blaine, and I'm under a civil protection order from Whatcom District Court from a death threat. I filed the Criminal Justice Commission complaint against Blaine Police Department for retaliatory policing, which is political in nature, against my open government activism by the mayor. My first 3 public records requests were this month, 2 to the Criminal Justice Commission and 1 to the Legislative Ethics Board. The Criminal Justice Commission procedural defects were discovered when I asked for records, and 5 days later, promptly got them. Those records revealed an apparent conspiracy between state officials, Blaine officials, and Blaine police, and an attorney for one of the police officers This prompted me to make my second request in all my 74 years, to get records about the communications between Blaine and state officials that led to the improper closing and then reopening of my case when they found out they had violated their own rules of procedure. I got a response from the Criminal Justice Commission that it would take 2 months to get those records, the records I needed to defend my life, which is under threat from a state senator's actions. So in August, I'll get to know more about this apparent conspiracy. Meanwhile, I'm fighting for my life. I haven't gotten ETA on the public records I requested from the state legislature for communications between my 42nd District Senator Shoemake and the Blaine mayor and city manager. But I can see, as someone who can't afford an attorney, and I'm a low-income disabled senior. So for me, the public records and the Public Records Act are not a matter of simple democratic values. For me, they're a matter of life and death. And I think I'll leave it there, and thank you very much.
Thank you. The pause is we're trying to determine whether another individual wants to make public comment on the model rules.
I think if they raise their hand, they want to. Yeah.
Yeah, which one?
Okay.
Okay, the additional individual, you should be able to turn on your microphone and provide comments on the Public Records Act model rules.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity on short notice. I did not sign up to give oral comments, so I'm glad I can join in. I'm with Stuart Jenner, resident in Normandy Park, King County. I'm a volunteer writer on education and environmental issues for a website called The Highline Journal. I have filed several public records requests with the local school district and a few other entities. I hope my comments today provide a lens for looking at the proposed rules, that maybe they can lead to improvements in the proposals where people can say, okay, in this scenario, here's what would be helpful. I'm not a lawyer. I have the greatest respect. It's kind of an awe to see some of these names of people who are on here because I've read their work for so long, and I feel like they know so much more than I do. Some of these details are really hard to understand. I've appreciated help from the Washington Coalition with questions I've had, and I support their comments and really trust what they say. But here are some additional comments. First of all, this act is really important. Second, it's very hard as a citizen, newbie, rookie, filing records to know what's realistic. I got some very good advice ultimately from a records officer. I thought I needed to cast a really wide net. She said, actually, it's better to file narrow requests. So my suggestion is maybe to have a suggestions area of suggestions that public records officials can provide to requesting parties when they're starting with this process. Another comment. One of the challenges is when a request is deemed closed by the agency, the requester has to file a new request. The response I've gotten sometimes is, well, there are no more records. And I think, well, I know there are more records. I know there's some other stuff that went on here. So were things destroyed or damaged or lost, or really maybe I'm mistaken? It can be hard for the person who's handling these requests to respond to questions or clarifications, but that lack of response especially lack of timely response, leads to a sense of I'm being stonewalled, I am not getting fair treatment here. I don't know if that needs to be addressed in formal laws and procedures or if there's any way to improve this situation. The changes talk about prompt disclosure. I've heard of other volunteer reporters saying they are told, we can fulfill this request in 6 months, or even it will take a year. I know Melissa Westbrook of the Safe Seattle Schools blog has had repeated instances of very long delays. And I sent this off to her just a few minutes ago. I wish that she could provide some comments too. But I'd suggest that maybe the districts or agencies need to provide an update each month saying, yes, we still have your request, we haven't lost it. Also, it would help for the records person to say what is going to take such a long length of time. Maybe there are ways to simplify the request, as I mentioned earlier. Maybe the person fulfilling the request can provide some feedback and say, you know what, if you're asking for 20 people, it's going to take a year. If you choose 2 people, we can get that done in 3 weeks or a month or something like that. So that's just an idea. Also talking about prompt, if there's a vote in November and it's early September, that, you know, it'd be really nice to have the response back before the ballots drop. And getting a response and saying, oh, it's going to take us till April, well, that's like obsolete, doesn't matter at that point. So I don't know if there's any way to say why something is urgent or to get things sped up. But that matters. The question then is who judges, who says, oh, it's important, this is urgent, and we need to get this done in a week versus even 2 weeks. So it's hard to know in that situation how this Model Act really assists with that. The wide variety of messaging options leads to a lot of potential for confusion and obfuscation. I think it's good to give examples, Instagram messaging via mobile or desktop, Facebook, etc. But also in a few years there may be something new. So I think that's something I'm hoping the Act can address. It's hard to know how private a request is, and this is something I've wondered about. Are people informed that I'm asking? Are there going to be consequences or potential retaliation? Can the person who I'm asking about or records from say to the records person, slow them down, please? After all, that person may well be the boss or the coworker of that records official. Really hard to know how this works. There was one instance, or a couple instances, where I've literally had to pay a dime. I couldn't make the transaction online, so I had to bring in the dime. And unfortunately, the dime got lost between dropping off at the front desk and getting it upstairs to the right people. And so I didn't get the information as soon as I wanted. I'm suggesting that fees of less than $1 be waived and that the cost of the fulfilling agency taking that dime may be greater than the money received. Maybe there's a way that the state could take the payment and notify the district, agency, etc. This is done. And final comment is ombudsman.
You're at 5 minutes, so
thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Yes, and I will email these in as well. I'll hit send right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, I believe we have gone through everybody who wanted to make public comment today. Thank you to everybody, both in person and who participated online. If there's a benefit that came out of the pandemic, it's this technology that really lets people participate more than in having to drive to do public hearings like this. Not trying to diminish people who came in person, because it's always nice to see people, but thank you everybody for participating. What you can expect next is we will get a transcript of today's hearing. We will review the comments that were provided today, both the oral comments and the written comments. And as you heard from our first commenter this morning, we will prepare what's called a concise explanatory statement, which is a bit of an oxymoron because they tend to be rather long, but it will summarize and address all the points that were made. And then from that, assuming that it were a decision point, we'll proceed with filing the 103 and filing the final rules. I know this has been an interest for the media for some time, and there's an interest, I think, both the requester community and agencies to have this completed, and my goal is to have that completed by the end of the summer. With that, I will close this public hearing and thank everybody again for participating and for everybody's time.